Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Anna and I'm a makeup educator and creator for people with hooded eyes. And today we're doing something so exciting. I cannot wait. We're going to be ranking all of the Natasha Denona palettes that I own in my collection. I am a huge Natasha Denona fan. I love her personality, her obviously brand, eyeshadow palettes, quality, everything the brand stands for. And the thing is that I met her. I met her this year in May, and it was probably top three of the best moments in my life. I'm not even joking. I will get to it a little bit more when I get to the palette that I have a connection with and kind of the connection with that event. So, yeah, we'll do that. But first of all, I want to just show you some of the minis because I don't want to put them into this ranking because it just wouldn't be fair. I do enjoy midi and regular size palettes way more than the minis, just because there's more options, there's more shades, obviously. So I am just going to go ahead and show you the minis that I own and kind of talk about them, and then we'll get to the rankings. Is this even considered a mini? It's not, but I mean, it's not her midi size and it's not her regular size eyeshadow palette. So you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So the first palette I want to talk about is Jubilee eyeshadow palette, and I believe I got this in BoxyCharm a couple of years back when I had a subscription. And the thing about this palette, that each shade individually is such an amazing and gorgeous shade. This is one of her best transition eyeshadow colors for people with a skin tone close to mine, like light to, light medium. This is called Vintage Taupe, I believe, and it also exists in one of her permanent eyeshadow palettes. I don't remember which one though. Then we got this beautiful pink shade that exists in her Love palette. This yellow and light blue, they exist in her Tropic palette. Oh, I know a lot about Natasha Denona. I'm proud of myself. And then this deep blue, I believe, is in her Metropolis eyeshadow palette. So I love the colors individually, but this color story just does not inspire me. And I cannot imagine or see a cohesive look using all of these colors. I just cannot see. Okay, if I get rid of pink and I just do these four colors, or if I get rid of, these two and I just use these colors, then I could get a look that I could enjoy. But I'm not vibing with this palette. And I love the quality on this, and I still use individual shades and add them to my look. But this palette is just kind of meh for me. Next one is also from my BoxyCharm era. Look at me go. So this is the eyeshadow palette 5, palette 07. I have no idea what this means. It's one of her like earlier launches, and she has a bunch of these 5 pans. And I just felt, I think BoxyCharm had like really good pricing in these. I bought it for like 12 bucks, which is totally worth it because it's good quality eyeshadow. But this is the only matte in the palette. Every other formulation is either a shimmer or a satin shade. So I don't think I've used it more than like one time when I initially bought it. And again, just the color story seemed a little bit off. And I bought it myself, so like the joke's on me, it's my fault. But nonetheless, it's just not something that inspires me. And we're off to a great start. I mean, Natasha Denona is my all-time favorite eyeshadow palette brand. So every other palette in my correct collection is super inspiring to me, and I love them with all of my heart. I just wanted to, show you everything and tell you all the truth. So next one I got the Natasha Denona Super Mini. What is it called? Like extra mini? Mini? Anyways, Bebop palette. So it only has 3 shades. And this one is actually so well used because it's these 3 shades, right? A lighter brown, a deeper brown, and a shimmer shade. So it just creates the most easy, super beautiful eyeshadow look. So I love this. Super, super love this. They also have a mini like this. They had, at least for one of the holidays in one of the Sephora sets. It was mini retro, and I gifted that one to my mom. That one is also really pretty. Next one I do have is an actual mini gold palette, and unfortunately one of the shades is broken because I took it traveling with me. but it's still one of the most gorgeous color stories. Listen, the olive tones, the golds, the browns, the shimmers, the duochromes. Everything about this palette is pure perfection. And I love taking it traveling, but it broke. So now I don't take it traveling anymore, but I love it so much. Lastly, it's actually the newest mini in my collection. It is their mini pastel palette. As you can see, I'm not really a big fan of minis. Like, I just don't care for them. I always buy midi palettes if I'm interested in a color story. But as far as mini goes, this was the one that inspired me because I don't own the midi pastel. So the mini one was something I wanted to pick up. And I do not regret that. This shade is spectacular. This is the only matte shade here. But the shimmers, they kind of stand out on their own, and you don't have to accompany them with this matte. You could either use a different palette or just a bronzer in the crease or just a shimmer over the lid. Super playful, super fun for the summer. Love, love, love this palette. Are we actually ready for the good stuff, you guys? I am so excited. So only two of all of these palettes were gifted to me, and every other palette I bought with my own money. So I love all of these. There's no dud, not even a little bit in any of these shades, any of these palettes. They're all spectacular. So take it as you want, but let's get into it. We got 12 palettes, and on place number 12, I have the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. Might be controversial. It's probably a lot of the people's number one palette. But hear me out. First of all, this was gifted to me at the event that I attended with the Natasha Denona launching at Ulta Beauty. And I was so shocked to see an actual eyeshadow palette in the goodie bag. That was amazing. That was so good. They also gifted us a lipstick, a lip gloss, and I bought a bunch of stuff myself at the event. I see the appeal for this palette. It is very wearable. It is beautiful. There is some variety here. Like, I like these cool tones over here. I like that there's red and then brown and then orange. It's cute. I'm just really in my cool tone era, as you can see by my eyeshadow look. I'm just really into cool tones. So a palette warm like this will only be fun for me in the fall, which is honestly soon. So I will get more use out of it. So far, I've only used it probably once, and I will pop an eyeshadow look somewhere here. Also, this is one of the older launches, so none of the shimmers have the new amazing formula, and that just automatically makes this palette a little bit less exciting for me. However, I do see the appeal. I respect the people who put it on their number one spot. I totally see it. But yeah, this is not a palette I chose to spend my own money on. And that's why it is in 12th place. Okay, number 11. You're going to see a bit of a trend here because number 11 is this palette, Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. Oh, I forgot that it's rearranged, but how aesthetically pleasing though. Anyways, because this palette is warm, I'm also just currently not into warm tones, although I'm looking at it and I just want to put all of this on my eyeballs. This palette is phenomenal. It is gorgeous. If you like the sunset look, the sunset eyeshadow look, get this. This will give you the most beautiful blends. Super deep burgundy, then you go into a little bit of pink, orange, and then moving into yellow and these beautiful transition shades. The blend is going to be amazing. Shimmers here are actually pretty great. Let me show you some of these. We're gonna do some of my favorites. So the shimmers are quite good. Good formula. Not like super special formula or anything, just a good shimmer eyeshadow formula. Now I purchased this. This was actually my first palette I purchased. Natasha Denona had, I believe it was a Black Friday sale. They always have a good Black Friday sale, and I snatched this one and the Love palette for the price of one. Amazing steal, and I still use this palette to this day. I love it. I enjoy it. Highly recommend it if you're into the sunset look or just warm tones in general. But this falls into 11th place. 10th spot, and it hurts me to do this, but this is just realistically going to be this, and I just have to deal with it. I just have to deal with it. Retro Glam Palette. Now, this is one of the newer launches. I believe this is the holiday launch for 2022. Ooh, look at me reorganizing these palettes. This looks phenomenal. Now I like it more. But anyways, this was the holiday launch for Christmas. This palette does not scream Christmas to me either, just like for a lot of you guys. This screams spring to me. Should have worn this this spring a little bit more. I love the idea. I love the vibes. We got the pink, we got the greens, the minty, we got the very interesting cool tone shades. They're not like taupey, they have a hint of green to them. They're so interesting and also beautiful sparkling shimmers. Like some of these shimmers are just wow, just amazing. I'm telling you. These were something else. They're so, so beautiful. I just don't see myself reaching for this palette. And not because it doesn't have boring browns. I love colorful eyeshadows. I adore colorful eyeshadow looks. I do them all the time. Give me purple, give me blue, give me green. This is just not the type of colorful that I reach for. However, I do love this palette. And whenever I feel inspired to create a look in this color story, muted, pastel, those vibes, I go for this palette. And I created the most beautiful look with it. I'll pop it on here as well. It's a beautiful palette if you're into these muted tones, and you'll create really different looks with it. Like a full-on pink look, I did it once actually. Just a neutral look or a green look, like that's just kind of cool. That's kind of cool. So yeah, number 10, but I love this palette with all of my heart. Getting close to some impossible decisions here. Number 9 is the Love Face eyeshadow palette that came out this spring. And not only it is a palette that I have Natasha's signature on, it is also the eyeshadow palette that I received in PR from the brand. So it has a really special place in my heart. Don't get me wrong. It is a beautiful palette. I love it. I love the concept of having blush and highlight and 5 shades in one palette for traveling. If I want a pink look, you best believe I will reach for this palette. If I want a bubblegum blush, I will reach for this blush. Also, I just really love that she came out with this sparkling foiled formula in this palette. So before she released other palettes with this formula, I would actually reach for this shimmer all of the time because of how sparkly it is. And I love it. The event. Okay, let's get to the event. So I got to meet Natasha Denona. I got to talk to her. I got to see her create her magic. I got to tell her that this was the first eyeshadow palette that I received from her in PR, and that is why I brought it, and that is why I wanted her to sign it. And during that conversation, she like something super unreal happened, and I always talk about it. And if you follow me from my other social media like Instagram or TikTok, I apologize because you've probably heard that story a million times, but she recognized me. Natasha Denona knows of my existence, and that is enough for me to like, I could die tomorrow and I'll die happy. She said, oh, like I know you, yeah, you post tips and tricks for hooded eyes and you post funny videos with your husband. Natasha Denona knows about my husband. The moment I will be on my deathbed, why am I talking about death so much? But I will be remembering that moment of my life because that was so special. I cried like a little, cannot say that word on YouTube, but I cried. And she signed this palette. It says, tons of love. So, such a special story, such a special connection. I will forever be grateful for that opportunity and for meeting Natasha and getting connected with her and for just everything that this career brought to me. Whoa, we've gone deep. Let's move on to our palette. Number 8 is going to be an eyeshadow palette that I think is the most underrated in the universe of Natasha Denona. So this is the Trio Chrome palette. And the thing about this palette is that it was advertised. Oh, I reorganized this one too. I look gorgeous. The thing about this palette is that it was advertised as a multi-chrome palette. So everyone was talking about these 3 shades multi-chromes, which are mediocre to say the least. That was very rude. They're not mediocre to say the least. They're just not as exciting as other multi-chromes from indie eyeshadow brands that we're used to. Okay? They're not bad. They're fine. But the thing about this palette is that these mattes are some of the best and most unique colorful mattes in the history of eyeshadow palettes. These mattes are incredible. I don't have another palette that has this beautiful orange, this beautiful mossy green, or this cool toned lilac-y shade. I literally do not own another palette that has shades like this, and people don't talk about it. Whenever they want to dress this palette, they always talk about these stupid shimmers. They're not stupid, but like about these shimmers that are not the main thing of this palette, in my humble opinion. So yeah, I get really mad when people don't like this palette because I find it phenomenal. It is in which spot? Eight? Yeah, eight. I find this palette phenomenal. I find it so inspiring. I want to use it more. I love the looks I came up with when I use this palette. Let me show you the trio chromes. They are dual chromes. They're, I'm looking at them. They're amazing. They're great. Like especially this one and this one. Like yes, they're amazing. It's just that this palette costs $129, and people were expecting more from the triochromes from the triochrome palette. That's all I'm gonna say. I love this palette. I adore it. I think it's amazing. I also actually purchased this one and another larger palette on Black Friday for the price of one. Number 7. This palette is again one of the first palettes that I got from Natasha Denona, along with the Sunrise palette. And I absolutely love this palette. If you love pinks and reds and purples, then you know. If you know, you know. People who love pinks and reds and purples, they love this palette. I adore it. I adore the way it looks on my eyes. And I love everything about it. There are some shadows here that are not performing as well as her newer launches. For example, the cream to powder formula in this palette is a little bit different than what you find in her palettes right now. I love her cream to powder formula. That is why I find the need to mention it right now. But this red, I always want to use it. It's just so beautiful and so unique, as well as this beautiful mauve shade here. And honestly, I this palette is so high up because of one specific video that Tati posted back in like 2019 when this palette launched. And I rewatched that video a million times because I'm just mesmerized by the eyeshadow look that she created in that video using this palette. And I recreated that look so many times in my life that I can't even count. It's embarrassing. And I don't know, this palette is very, very special to me. It's also really fun for Valentine's Day. Like, come on, look at these shadows. So I'm going to swatch some of the shimmers that I really enjoy. I do love this silver. I find it really, really beautiful and just a fun little cool tone pop of color in this palette. Like I love that you could do pink, you could do red, but you could also do purple with it and silver. I find this super, super fun. I don't know. I don't really hear people talk about it much because now it's a little bit older, but I find myself reaching for this palette whenever I want a red or a pink look constantly. Number 6. So this is another larger palette that I own along with the Triochrome one. And these are the only two larger palettes that I own from Natasha Denona. This is her Circle Local palette. I believe this one is also rearranged. Let me check. Yes, it is. Oh my God, I'm so excited. The most colorful palette in the history of Natasha Denona as a brand. The quality, the mattes, the formulation, everything about this palette is amazing. When I first saw it, and the shades do not look like this when you buy a palette, I was a little bit confused. There's like the palette is kind of all over the place. I couldn't really see myself create a look using this palette, and I was a little bit hesitant when I purchased it, but I'm so happy I did. Anytime I want like a really colorful look, I reach for the palette. When I want a deep blue or a deep purple look, I reach for this palette. If you see me wearing a pastel baby blue shade on my lids, there's 99% chance that it's this shade because this shade is absolutely phenomenal. And I'm not even talking about shimmers here that which are so beautiful. This is such a unique gold shade. The lavender, the blue. I love this palette. This is so underrated because people don't really wear colors like this, so people don't really talk about this palette. But if you like colorful eyeshadow, if you like different types of depth in your look, if you like pastels, if you like shimmer pops, this palette is for you. It was super worth it for me because I bought it alongside with the Triochrome palette for the price of one. So it was a great deal for me. I love using this palette. I love playing with it. I love swatching it. I love rearranging the colors, as you can see. I just love playing with my eyeshadow palettes. Not necessarily like wearing them, but just, just playing. I'm going to show you some of the shimmers. So they're beautiful, sparkling shimmer formula. Very, very impactful. Very, very gorgeous. This is something that nobody can deny, is the quality of all of these palettes. They are amazing. You are going to get the best of the best eyeshadow quality when you pay the big bucks. And yeah, this is how I rearranged all of the palettes. They have these holes here, and you can pop the eyeshadow from the palette and then rearrange them. I do that sometimes as a fun little activity. It's actually my hobby to rearrange Natasha Denona palettes. Let me know if you want a separate video on that, on like how I do that and my thought process, because I would be willing to do that. Top 5. Am I ready for the 5th spot? I just had to put this guy high up. Come on. It is phenomenal. This is the Glam Face palette, and I believe there were a lighter version and a darker version, and this is a lighter version. And listen, this guy travels with me a lot. This blush is a great formulation. This highlight is decent. These 5 shades are gorgeous. I believe when I purchased this, these shimmers were a little bit elevated than the shimmers she came out with in previous palettes. So that made me really excited. And also these browns look really beautiful on brown eyes. And I love the look that you create with this palette. Don't get me wrong, there is not a lot of variety in terms of looks that you can get from just these 5 shades, but it is guaranteed that you will look amazing wearing this palette because the shadows are just so beautiful, so easy to use. They literally blend themselves. You just need to, grab a brush and then it will just appear on your lids. It's seriously phenomenal. I love this palette. If you are basic when it comes to eyeshadows, which is not a bad thing. I love that word. I love being basic. If you're basic when it comes to eyeshadows and you just want one palette, one look, 100% great formula, you want also maybe some face products, take a look at this guy. It's totally, totally worth it, and just such a beautiful, beautiful concept. It's getting harder. I don't know which palette to put at number 4, but I have to be like logical and realistic. I feel bad putting this palette at number 4, but I just have to. Number 4 is one of her recent launches, the Yucca palette. And this palette, I haven't actually ever rearranged that. I need to get on that. This palette, look at this. I haven't even taken this off yet. This palette is new in my collection. I've used it probably a couple times. I'm looking at it right now, and this is going to be my fall palette. I'm telling you, I'm going to use the heck out of this palette. I haven't gotten enough time with it. I am so excited. I love this. I love everything about it. I love that there is oranges. I love that there is mossy, yucky greens. I love this chartreuse. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I'm not a native speaker. I love this lime, yellow, neon, green, whatever color. Gorgeous. The shimmers, this is the first palette after Love Face palette where we got more of the sparkling foiled formula. And these shimmers literally changed my life. I'm not even kidding. The fact that she also put a cool toned, oh my God, just look at that gunmetal shimmer here. Just thank you, Natasha. This palette is what my dreams are made of. It's literally amazing. I am even going to swatch, even though I'm not really good at it. But just look at how these shimmers play when the light hits them. The mattes are just the curation of these colors. I find it phenomenal that they created this when every other palette that came out in 2023 is just boring. Just literally every brand that came out with a palette this year made something boring. And this got me excited. And also, when I was at the Natasha Denona event, how many times have I mentioned that event? Oh my God, that's so funny. But it was just an exciting time for me. When I was at the event, there was like a Q&A time, and everyone kept asking her, oh, what are your goals? What are your dreams? How to start a brand, blah, blah, blah. Guess what I asked? Guess what Anna asked? Of course, I asked her, when's the new eyeshadow palette coming out? And she said very, very soon, and it was this one. So it also kind of holds a special spot in my heart. And I also really love the looks that I did with this palette. I literally cannot wait to create more. Like I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, please come to me. But yeah, it has to be in the fourth place because it is a specific color story and because it is not something that would be my everyday go-to palette. Okay, number three, but it's not set in stone because one of the other two palettes is the newest palette, and obviously the newer the palette is, the more exciting it is. It's always like that. So this might be in between three and two. This is the Natasha Denona Retro palette, and I remember this was the palette that was leaked, and when I saw the picture, I was like, oof, phew, I can actually skip this launch because it's just burgundies. But when I saw the reveal, the swatches, it in person, or when I actually saw what this palette is about, and I bought it on a pre-sale, and I fell in love with it instantly. I seriously could not put it down. This is my most used Natasha Denona palette for sure. It came out, I believe, in the fall of 2021. And I just absolutely adored that. I could not only go mauve, burgundy, warm toned, purple, but I could also put this shade in the crease, nude mauve, this shade to deepen up, opart, and then this metal shade, Jude, on the lid. And that created the most gorgeous, stunning everyday eyeshadow look in my entire life. I will probably try and find a picture and pop it on here on the screen. Not only that, but the shade Mod here is my most used single eyeshadow in my entire collection because this light matte pale pink inner corner, it's something else. It is my favorite look ever. I just recently wore this inner corner to a concert. I'm absolutely in love with this palette. I find it so sultry. I find the quality so amazing. This is truly that palette for me that I can grab and go and spend a month on an island. Why would I need a palette on an island? You know what I mean? If I had to grab one palette, I could grab this palette and be good with it for like 6 months and wouldn't get bored because I just really, really love the variety, the quality, the color story, everything about this palette. This palette kind of made me fall in love deeper with the brand, I want to say, because I was already in love with the brand, but this palette made that collection even stronger. And I think that this palette put the Natasha Denona brand at the top level for me, along with Pat McGrath. But Natasha Denona is higher now because of the thing we're not going to be speaking about, which is Mothership number 11. I honestly thought about putting this palette to the first place because of how right up my alley that palette is. But I couldn't do it to myself because I am truly a colorful eyeshadow lover at heart. That is who I am. That is how I started out my journey as a content creator, by doing colorful and creative eyeshadow looks. So I just couldn't do it to myself. However, when I tell you this palette changed my life, I am not lying to you. Oh, I wasn't showing you the cover. This is the newest launch by Natasha Denona. This is her I Need a Nude palette. And from the second I saw the leak and the reveal pictures, I was sold. I was in love. I knew I'm going to have to grab it. I knew that it would become one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection. I am actually wearing it right now. And let me tell you, I feel so beautiful and glamorous and gorgeous. Just looking at it right now is making me feel some type of a way. This palette was literally made for me. I'm obsessed with cool tones, especially on my eyes. I am obsessed with the new shimmer formula. I can't even explain it to you. The sparkling foil formula that I was sharing from the previous palettes was amazing. But what they did with this new, what is it called? Is it like a wet formula or something? I don't remember how they call it. But what they did with this shade right here, when I first swatched this shade, I was like, I was in true disbelief that that is even possible. But I'm just gonna swatch some of these shimmers from this palette. This palette is not even about these shimmers, even though I really, really love it. If you guys have the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes eyeshadow palette, you might and you enjoyed those shimmers, you might enjoy these shimmers as well. They're kind of similar, but not the same. Even with being a neutral palette, an absolutely 100% neutral palette with a couple of pops of warm tones, but mostly cool toned, this is not a boring palette for me. This is just, I am not bored. And no one is, because it got sold out at Sephora pretty quickly. This palette is just absolutely phenomenal. This is it for me. I will take it traveling with me for sure. This is exactly what the kind of eyeshadow palette I would like with me when I want to do an everyday type of look or a smoky eye like this. It goes from very light to very dark, which I really love and enjoy and appreciate in palette. I love it. But I couldn't put it in the first spot because it is not a colorful palette at all. So you will see what I mean when we get to number one. But anyways, very solid addition to my collection. I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. I do have a discount code with Natasha Denona. I will put it on the screen, and if you're shopping from her website, it's a 15% discount code, and I get a small commission if you purchase from a link. I appreciate you if you do so. I really enjoy the brand and cannot recommend it enough. But yeah, anyways, let me know if you picked this palette up because it is the newest launch, and what do you feel about it? How do we feel about it? What do we think? Are we excited? Are we enjoying it? Is it our number one palette? Let me know. And I'm just going to quickly show you how I created this look. I started with the shade Silhouette and deepened up my inner and outer portions of the eye. Then with the shades Tender and Stone and Mesh, I kind of buffed everything out and blended it out. And I did do the same thing on the lower lash line, and then added shade Delilah, shade Muse, and shade Sheen through the center of my eyes for some sparkles. And then with a little bit of eyeliner, eyeshadow, and mascara, I got this beautiful look. We're at number one, you guys. I am so pumped. This palette has been my number one ever since it got released. There's just something so special about this palette. It is my dream palette by Natasha Denona, and yes, it is my dream palette as well. I don't know how she knew, but this palette just has everything I might need. This palette has colors. This palette has a multi-chrome, which is, I find this one better quality than the ones in the cherry chrome. This palette has warm tones when I feel like warm tone. You know, I don't hate warm tones. I just don't reach for them. This palette has gold, and this palette has a cool tone option for me, which I super appreciated. My everyday type of cool tone look would be this shade in the crease, this brown to deepen up, and this all over my lid. And I just love it. I always do it. But to have other options in this palette just means so much to me. And I absolutely adore the variety here. This is what makes it number one for me. Not only you can go a million different directions with this palette, you could also go really light or really deep because you have the black here. And let me tell you, Natasha Denona's black is one of the best black eyeshadows in the market. I absolutely love this palette, genius curation of the story, because not only do we have several shades to deepen up our crease, like the purple, the black, the brown, the warm brown, not only do we have those shades, but we also have a variety of shimmers. And I feel like this palette will just suit a lot of different complexions, which is also something really important. So let me go ahead and swatch some of these shimmers that I love. And none of them are her like new sparkling wet formulas, whatever, but it just doesn't matter to me. Look at how beautiful that duochrome is. Like, to me, this palette is perfect, even though I'm such a hard, like, cool tone shadows lover, and this palette is not cool tone. I still tend to always gravitate towards it. I tend to reach for it whenever I need to do like a quick look and I don't want to think about it. I will always reach for this palette. It is always on my vanity, and I just love it. I love it so much, and I want to know your thoughts. Like, do you agree with me? What is your number one palette in your Natasha Denona collection? Do you even collect their palettes? Do you enjoy them? Do you enjoy their quality? Or do you prefer another brand? But yeah, I really want to know what your favorite palette is from Natasha Denona collection. This is definitely mine for now. Things may change. I might even, swap something out. Alrighty guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much, future Anna, for editing this, because I know that you hate editing YouTube videos and it's so hard. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know your favorite palette. Let me know if you agree with me, or if you disagree with me. That is also totally fine. Leave your video suggestions down below as well. And don't forget to like and subscribe and use my code if you purchase from Natasha Denona website. I appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next one.